Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. My name is Raihan Aliawanti Arohma. Today, I would like to present my presentation, my final project, with title "The Giraffe is Taller Than Deer," an ICT-based English lesson unit for grade 5 students. This lesson unit was designed as part of the ICT-based lesson planning for ELT course. Throughout this presentation, I will explain the rationale behind my lesson design, the learning objectives, the teaching approaches, the integration of ICT tools, the learning activities, the assessment methods, and finally the strengths and reflections of this lesson unit. I hope this presentation demonstrates how technology can support meaningful English learning and create a more engaging classroom environment for young learners. Before discussing about the lesson unit, I would like to explain the reason why I chose this topic. comparative comparative adjectives are one of the fundamental grammar in elementary school. Students frequently use comparison in their lives in their conversation, such as comparison animals, objects, places, or people. How many how many students will experience difficulties and in using comparative adjectives correctly, especially when applying the plus than structure in speaking and writing. For that reason, I designed this lesson unit to help students learn comparative adjectives through meaningful communication rather than simple memorization. Instead of asking students to memorize grammar rules, and I encourage them to discover independently through interactive activities supported by technology. Another important reason is that today's students are digital learners. They are already familiar with smartphones, videos, online quizzes, and interactive applications. Therefore, integrating ICT into English learning can increase students' motivation and confidence during the learning process. Now, let me introduce the lesson unit. The title of my lesson is "The Giraffe is Taller Than Deer." I choose this title because this is based on the course book, grade 5, English book students, grade 5. Comparison makes grammar easier to understand and more enjoyable for your learners. Instead of beginning with abstract grammar explanations, students first observe pictures, identify difference between objects, and naturally produce comparative sentence. This approach, I hope this helps students understand grammar through context rather than memorization. Now let's move to lesson identity. This lesson unit is designed for grade 5 students during the second semester. The learning topic is comparative adjectives, especially focusing on the plus than structure. The lesson consists of 2 meetings, allowing sufficient time to students to understand concept, practice language, and demonstrate their throughput speaking and writing. The instructional model used is the discovered learning, while the teaching approach is student-centered student-centered learning. This means that students become active participants of passive listeners. They are encouraged to observe, ask questions, discuss with their classmates, investigate language patterns, and finally construct their own understanding of comparative adjectives. Resource ICT tools to support the learning process. I integrated several ICT tools including WhatsApp, Canva, Vocaro, YouTube, Google Docs, and Google Docs. Besides digital tools, I also use flashcards, PowerPoint slides, interactive quizzes, worksheets, and classrooms facilities such as smartboard, speakers, laptops, smartphones, and internet connection. Each technology has a different purpose. For example, WhatsApp is used to communication and assignment submission. Canva helps students create attractive visual learning products. Google Docs supports collaborative writing. Vocado provides opportunities for speaking practice and pronunciation environment. Kahoot is used in engaging formative assessment through educational games. Meanwhile, YouTube provides authentic pronunciation models that students can imitate. Therefore, technology is not simply added for decoration. Instead, every ICT tool is selected because it supports specific learning objectives and improves students' learning process. In this lesson, we will discuss how the lesson unit is aligned with the Merdeka curriculum. As a teacher, it is important to ensure that lesson activities support the national curriculum. Therefore, I first analyze the capaian pembelajaran CP and ATP, alur tujuan pembelajaran for grade 5 English. The lesson focuses on two main learning elements, reading and viewing, where students understand the meaning of comparative adjectives and use them in simple text, and speaking and presenting, where they use comparative adjectives accurately to compare two or more objects in spoke communication. These competencies serve as the foundation for the entire lesson, and every activity, worksheet, and assessment was selected based on supporting the curriculum outcomes. Furthermore, the lesson is aligned with the ATP related to comparing objects and concepts, specifically using the R plus 10 structure. Instead of teaching grammar as an isolated skill, the lesson encourages students to use grammar as a communication tool. Students compare animals, classroom objects, transportation, and everyday things make the learning process meaningful and relevant. Why curriculum alignment is important? Curriculum alignment strengthens the lesson units, making it easier for teachers to implement and evaluate. A strong curriculum alignment ensures that activities are aligned with expected competencies. Teachers can focus on interesting activities that directly support the desired outcomes. Using the ABCD model in lesson objectives ensures that objectives are clear, measurable, and visible. These objectives don't only focus on grammar knowledge, but they emphasize communication, practical language use, and real classroom performance. The lesson unit aligns with the Merdeka curriculum as it emphasizes competency development rather than knowledge memorization. In conclusion, curriculum alignment is an essential aspect of successful lesson design. By aligning lesson activities with the necessary competencies, teachers can create engaging, meaningful, and relevant learning experience suitable for their students. The Discovery Learning Model is a progressive instructional approach developed by John Brunner, emphasizing active student learning through exploration and discovery. This model is particularly appropriate for grade 5 students as they naturally curiosity and enjoy exploring, asking questions, and solving problems. Instead of explaining grammar rules in the traditional way, the teacher first presents visual aids and examples give students a sense of the language patterns and ideas. Once students have observed similarities and differences, they develop a comprehension of how comparative adjectives are formed. Upon completing this exploration, The teacher confirms the grammatical rule with students. This allows the students to understand not only the rules, but also why they are relevant and useful. Connection with deep learning. Additionally, discovered learning supports the principle of deep learning, enabling students to develop conceptual understanding of language patterns and how they apply it to real life situations. This promotes deeper understanding and long-lasting knowledge retention. Connection with experiential experience learning. Moreover, Blazon supports engaged learning principles as students actively experience language through direct observation and exploration, building concepts through investigation and analysis, and applying language rules in real-life environments. Strengths of using discovery learning. Discovery learning has several strong attributes. First, it encourages students to develop active learning strategies, fostering exploration and curiosity instead of memorizing rules. Students learn through direct experience and active comprehension. Through engagement with subject matter, the concept becomes more meaningful and enjoyable for students. In conclusion, the implementation of discovered learning in the classroom creates an engaging, learning focused environment that supports the development of deeper understanding, critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, and ownership over learning, significantly enhancing the overall experience for both students and educators. The main highlight of my lesson unit is the integration of information and communication technology (ICT). For enhancing learning, I choose 6 tools that support different language skills and objectives: WhatsApp, Canva, Kahoot, Google Docs, Vocaro, and YouTube. Instead of using technology just because it is available, each tool has a clear instructional purpose. WhatsApp is the primary communication platform for students receiving announcements, assignment, instruction, and vocabulary supports via group chats. Within the classroom, students submit vocabulary recordings, engage with the teachers and classmates without a break from conventional class activities. Familiar with WhatsApp, it is practical, accessible, and user-friendly, enabling both students and parents to benefit. Canva is another useful tool for students assigning posters, visual comparisons, and presentation using comparative adjectives like analyzing to animals or fruits. This activity combines language learning with creativity and visual communication while creating engaging digital products. Instead of solely writing sentences, students create a meaningful digital outcomes, boosting motivation and comprehension. Kahoot is an interactive formative assessment tool for grammar questions via base quizzes, providing immediate feedback to both students and teachers. The ability to immediately clarify any misunderstandings maintains motivation and enhances learning. Google Docs facilitates collaborative writing of comparative sentences and short paragraphs, promoting collaboration, communication, and peer learning. Instead of solely working individually, students discuss grammar, share ideas, and assist one another in constructing correct sentence, reflecting the importance of collaborative learning and modern education. Lastly, Vocaro is a platform for speaking practice, helping students improve pronunciation and actively record and submit their speaking recordings to teachers. One advantage of Vocaro is the student can practice repeatedly before submitting their work. This reduces anxiety and builds speaking confidence, especially for students who are shy about speaking in front of the class. It also allows teachers to access pronunciation more accurately than relying only on classroom observation. YouTube. Finally, I integrate YouTube pronunciation videos. These videos provide authentic models of English pronunciation. Students can listen to the native or fluent speakers, imitate the pronunciation, and practice stress and intonation. These exposures help students develop more accurate pronunciation while making learning more engaging through multimedia content. terms of ICT integration, the lesson unit benefits from clear pedagogical usage of internet tools for specific learning objectives. Technology supports communication, creativity, collaboration, and fluency in speaking, achieving a balanced language digital literacy focused learning process. The unit utilizes technology through WhatsApp, Canva, Google Docs, and Vocaru for the students' benefit from a gradual, integrated learning process promoting language skills and digital literacy. The lesson employs this discovery learning six-stage method for students to engage in understanding. Stage 1 Stimulation. The first stage involves displaying images of objects or animals and elicit initial ideas from students. The teacher asks open-ended questions such as which animal is taller, which object is bigger. Students collect data and develop curiosity about the learning goal. Stage 2 Problem Statement. The second stage involves identifying the learning problem and asking students how English speakers compare different objects. Students inquire, how do we express one animal being bigger than another? This stage encourages students to identify the objective themselves and develop critical thinking. Stage 3 Data Collection. This stage involves exploring various resources and collecting data. Students access written worksheets, online resources, or Google Drive materials. They collect examples of adjectives and engage in language patterns. The teacher serves as a facilitator and helps students overcome obstacles. Stage 4 Data Processing. Students work in pairs or groups, exploring various learning resources. They complete worksheets, compare pictures, and develop comparative sentences together. Students discuss examples of comparative adjectives and learn how to recognize language patterns. Stage 5 Verification. After collecting data, students present their findings. The teacher confirms correct grammar and rectifies any misconceptions. Stage 6 Generalization. Students summarize their learning and explain the grammar rule for comparative adjectives. Students discover the rule by relating it to experience situation. Stage 7 Evaluation. Finally, students reflect on their learning experience and evaluate their progress. This lesson demonstrates how learning activities, technology tools, and students work together to create an engaging experience. Assessment. The lesson includes multiple assessments such as formative and summative assessments, consisting of formative checks and summative feedback. Additionally, the lesson aligns with learning objectives by providing evidence of constructive alignment between objectives, activities, and assessment. This teaching approach strengthens students' skills in communication, creativity, collaboration, critical thinking, and digital literacy, preparing them for lifelong learning. Now, I would like to explain how students' learning is assessed throughout this lesson unit. Assessment is a very important component because it helps teachers measure not only the final learning outcomes but also students' progress during the learning process. For this reason, I designed two types of assessment, formative assessment and summative assessment. Using both assessment types provides a more comprehensive picture of students' learning and allows the teacher to give continuous feedback instead of evaluating students only at the end of the lesson. Formative assessment. Let's begin with formative assessment. Formative assessment is conducted throughout the learning process to monitor students' understanding and provide immediate feedback. In this lesson unit, I use several formative assessment activities. The first activity is a Kahoot quiz. Students answer multiple choice and fill in the blank questions about comparative adjectives. Since Kahoot provides instant feedback, students can immediately recognize and correct their mistakes. At the same time, the teacher can identify which concepts require further explanation. The second activity is Vocaru speaking practice. Students record themselves comparing two objects using comparative adjectives. This activity allows the teacher to assess pronunciation, fluency, grammar accuracy, and speaking confidence. Unlike traditional classroom speaking activities, students have opportunities to practice several times before submitting their recordings, which helps reduce anxiety. The third formative assessment is collaborative sentence construction through WhatsApp. Students work together by writing comparative sentences, giving peer feedback, and discussing grammar with their classmates. This activity encourages collaboration while allowing the teacher to observe students' participation and language development. Strengths of formative assessment. One major advantage of these formative assessments is that assessment becomes part of the learning process. Students don't feel like they are constantly taking tests. Instead, assessment is naturally integrated into games, discussions, speaking practice, and collaboration. As a result, students receive the immediate feedback, improve cognitively, and become more confident throughout the lesson. Assessment. Summative assessments assess students' learning by comparing objects, using three adjectives, and engaging in oral communication. These tasks require applying grammar in real life situations, along with comparative paragraph writing and oral presentation. Rubric for speaking fluency, pronunciation, writing clarity, coherence, correct use of adjectives, and understanding the concept can be used to evaluate performance at four levels. Exceed expectations, meets expectations, approaches expectations, and needs improvement. The rubric allows teachers to assess students objectively while helping them understand expectations for their tasks. Additionally, the lesson unit utilizes constructive alignment to ensure all components are connected. Learning objectives determine the learning activities. Finally, the assessments direct measure the learning objectives. For example, if one learning objective requires students to speak using comparative adjectives, students first practice speaking through pair discussions and vocal recordings. Later, the summative assessment also asks them to present an oral presentation. Therefore, students are never assessed on something they have not practiced before. This creates a logical and coherent learning experience. Why constructive alignment is important? Because one of the greatest strengths of this lesson unit is its strong constructive alignment. Every activity has a clear purpose, and nothing is included simply to make the lesson longer or more interesting. Instead, every activity contributes directly to achieving the learning objectives. Because of this alignment, students experience a clear learning progression. They begin by exploring new concepts, continue practicing through guided and collaborative activities, receive continuous feedback, and ultimately demonstrate their learning independently. The systemic approach improves both learning effectiveness and teaching quality. Lesson reflection encourages independent learning. Students reflect most enjoyable activities, challenging aspects, comparing adjectives in daily communication. Reflection is beneficial for identifying strengths, weaknesses, and improvements in student engagement, ICT integration, and lesson design. Strengths. The strength is reflection encourages independence as students assess their progress instead of solely relying on teacher feedback. Teachers utilize this information for enhancing lesson design, management, and technology integration. The lesson unit fosters continuous improvement for both teaching learning. Overall strengths. The lesson unit effectively supports competencies through discovered learning and promotes coherence with constructive alignment. Reflection. To conclude, I appreciate crafting this informative lesson unit. Integrating curriculum, teaching methods, and technology created a coherent, engaging unit that met learning outcomes while supporting a suitable pedagogy. The project showcased the significance of improving students' experiences and increased communication. For challenges, despite these strengths, I also faced several challenges during the design process. First, selecting appropriate tools was challenging because there are numerous educational applications available, but not all cater to elementary school students. Thus, I opted for tools that were simple, accessible, and suitable for grade 5 students, such as WhatsApp, Kahoot, Google Docs, and YouTube. Another challenge was balancing technology with lesson objectives. I wanted technology to complement rather than overshadow pedagogy. This is why each tool in this lesson has a specific instructional function, supporting communication, pronunciation, collaboration, or interactive assessment. A final challenge was designing activities for discovery learning. Since students independently discover grammar rules, I needed to prepare guiding questions, relevant examples, and appropriate scaffolding to guide them through the learning process. Additionally, technical difficulties were possible, such as unstable internet connections or unavailable devices. Teachers should always plan alternative activities if technology is unavailable to effectively support learning. For your future improvements, if I implement it in a real classroom, I will consider several improvements. Before the lesson, provide a brief orientation to familiarize students with the tools, incorporating authentic communicative activities like comparing objects, interviewing classmates, or creating multimedia storytelling to engage them in the real language context for meaningful language learning. Additionally, I will cater to different student needs by differentiating activities, providing scaffolding or more challenging assignments for inclusive support. Finally, I will continue integrating digital tools to encourage collaboration and self reflection through Google Docs or platforms. Overall, strengths of the lesson unit. Before concluding my presentation, I'd like to highlight why I believe this lesson unit is effective. The content aligns with Merdeka curriculum's objectives, emphasizing discovery learning and active language skills with technology support for essential skills like communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, problem solving, and digital literacy. The lesson incorporates formative and summative evaluation for a holistic understanding of growth and teacher enhancement. It evenly blends curriculum consistency, effective teaching tactics, technology usage, and authentic language acquisition.